Yes, there was a lot of time that they dated, but I think he was really testing, because of the past relationships within the royal family, if she could handle what royal life would be.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive Rewind, where we delve back into the files and relive some of the highlights and lowlights of royal family history. Remember to subscribe to us here on the Royal Exclusive YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Well, 15 years ago, on a holiday with friends in Kenya, Prince William proposed to Kate Middleton with his mother's ring, a dazzling 12-carat sapphire surrounded by diamonds. The couple had met at the University of St Andrews. They bonded over their shared love of skiing, and if William missed a lecture, Catherine would apparently share her notes. Some years later, William recalled, "When I first met Kate, I knew there was something very special about her." He wasn't wrong. The nation and the world would go on to fall in love with Kate. I'm news.com.au's Bronte Coy, and I'm delighted to be joined by royal correspondent Sarah Hewson and news and royal commentator Samara Gill. Sarah, we first heard of the engagement through an official statement released from Clarence House in November 2010, but the couple had actually secretly gotten engaged a month before that. What do we know about the proposal?
They were on holiday in Kenya. They were on safari with Mount Kenya in the background, and William had been carrying his mother's engagement ring in his backpack for 3 weeks. Imagine the pressure of that.
My heart.
Just waiting for the right moment to propose. Look, there'd been a huge amount of build-up to this, a very long courtship for them, a lot of questions about when it was going to happen. They'd discussed marriage, they'd discussed getting engaged, but Catherine still said it came as a surprise, that moment. And the choice of Kenya, really significant. Africa is somewhere very, very close to William's heart. It's the continent, he says, that has given him great comfort over the years. Kenya, a country that he went to the year after his mother's death. And I think really, really fitting that he should choose that place in the middle of nowhere, in total privacy, in order to propose.
You can imagine how stunning the backdrop would have been as well. And you were actually there, though, the day they gave that interview announcing the engagement to the world. What do you remember of it?
We were all invited to St James's Palace to have tea and cake with the newly engaged couple, celebrating that moment. They had just sat down to give that big interview, and we were chatting with them, and Catherine described herself to me when I said, you look very calm, because this is the first time we as journalists had actually spoken to her. Before that, Clarence House had always said she's a private citizen. They've been very protective of her. This was her introduction to the world, to the media, as a future member of the royal family. And she described herself as being like a swan, that her legs were furiously paddling beneath the surface, but she was trying to appear calm on the surface. And she'd had a lot of preparation for this, but I don't think anything could have prepared her for that actual moment as a future princess.
And Samara, going right back to that time, what was the public reaction like, and what do you remember about hearing the news?
Well, I mean, I was obsessed with her. I took my sort of photo of her I'd found in a magazine and was like, to my hairdresser. I was very young at the time, by the way, which is revealing my age. But I was like, please, can you do this? I want the Kate Middleton haircut, as soon as she had done that interview. I mean, how can we forget that beautiful blue Issa wrap dress that she wore to match the sapphire ring? I mean, Tina Brown described her as an extraordinary, ordinary girl. And I think that is how the public perceived her from that first interview. Yes, she had that real down-to-earth, British girl next door vibe, but she was also there was something quite dazzling about her. There was a sheen, and it was really, really, it was a perfect foray into the public eye. And since then, I don't think she has put a single foot wrong. So yeah, I mean, introducing Kate, William made a very great choice with her, but I think it was very much a partnership that they went into together. And yes, there was a lot of time that they dated, but I think he was really testing, because of the past relationships within the royal family, if she could handle what royal life would be. And I think she was properly ready. The time was right during that engagement.
And it's an enormous thing to take on, of course. And they were so glowing and happy and giggly that day for the engagement interview, and they have always seemed to be such a perfect match. They did break up a bit though before that engagement. What had happened there, Sarah, and what brought them back together?
Yeah, it was 2007, and they broke up for actually a short period of time. William was serving in the armed forces. He was based down in Dorset. They'd been under extraordinary pressure. The weighty Katie headlines, was he going to propose? What was he going to do? They were a young couple. And I think he panicked. And he was also very conscious that she needed to know what she was letting herself in for. So they had this breakup. She played an absolute blinder after the breakup. She was photographed out and about in London looking sensational. Look at what you're missing out on, William. And it wasn't long before she was back sitting just a couple of rows behind him at the concert for Diana, for example. And that relationship was back on track. And she said at the time she really wasn't happy about that breakup, but actually it made her much, much stronger.
And exactly as you've said, it's not just about choosing a life partner, which is an enormous decision for anyone. It's about choosing someone whose world is going to turn upside down, who will have to shoulder enormous responsibility, and also who needs to be accepted by the public. Seeing her that day, on the day of their engagement, do you think she seemed nervous about all of that or very prepared?
Really nervous, I think, because she was an ordinary girl from an ordinary family who happened to meet a prince while she was at university. And what an undertaking it was and has been. And, you know, she looked fabulously glossy, but she was also very nervous in her initial forays into public speaking. We could hear the nerves, we could see how she wasn't comfortable putting herself forward, but my goodness, has she grown into that role, and now looking every inch the Queen in waiting. She's found her passion projects, she's found her place, she's found her role as a member of the royal family, part of the supporting cast, but also as a future Queen and the mother of a future king.
Absolutely. And to just focus on one key element of this, of course, back to the ring for a moment.
Ring.
It has been beamed across the world so many times in the years since. It's the ring that King Charles bought, well, then Prince Charles bought for Diana in 1981. It reportedly cost £28,000 then, but today is worth more than £300,000. There you go. Do you think, Samara, this might be the most iconic engagement ring of all time?
I don't think it's just iconic. I think it's symbolic. I think it was really symbolic for William to give that to Catherine. I mean, there is a quote that he basically said, it's my way of keeping my mother sort of close to it all. And that is really what it was about. It was about keeping her literally within the loop of his marriage and his engagement. And I mean, that is such an iconic ring, probably one of the most photographed rings of all time. I mean, it was slightly controversial at the time when Diana picked it out because it was from a catalogue. It wasn't from any collection that had previously been within the royal family. It was sort of one of Diana's first breaks from tradition to go and pick that ring. And I know it ruffled a few feathers in the background, but she loved it. Diana was 19 at the time when she picked it out. So I think that ring carries so much history that it was a real sort of, it was very trusting of William to give her that, because that really showed that he is in it for the long run, she's in it for the long run, and he wants something almost different out of their marriage than maybe what his stepfather had.
And of course, when two people get engaged and get married, their families come together as well. And once again, that's a big deal for any normal family, but we're talking about the royal family and a family that was relatively ordinary in a more flattering sense than it sounds prior to this. So we had Mike and Carol Middleton and the King and Queen, they've all come together. How do you think this merging has played out over the years? What's their relationship like, Sarah?
Well, it's interesting you say, you know, two families come together, because that hasn't always been the way in the past with the royal family, because when someone is married into the royal family, effectively for their families, it's very difficult. They're kind of saying goodbye to Christmas and, you know, family times. They're handing their child into this establishment. And that hasn't been the way with William and Catherine and the Middleton family. In fact, the year after their marriage, December 2012, they broke with tradition. They didn't go to Sandringham for Christmas. They went to Bucklebury and spent it with the Middletons. Now, Catherine was pregnant. She'd been suffering from hyperemesis gravidarum, from acute morning sickness at the time. But I think this was was their way of saying, these people are hugely important to us. And Michael and Carol Middleton have gone on to be absolutely fundamental to their family, to the raising of the children, their grandchildren, the support they've given to them, the way in which they stepped in after Catherine's cancer diagnosis. William absolutely loving that sense of normality, sitting around the table for Sunday lunch in an ordinary family. And he has made it absolutely clear they are a non-negotiable part of the family now, and that is why we see them, really prominent position at the coronation. At Ascot this year, Catherine wasn't there, and yet there they were in the royal box.
And in that video, even when Catherine last year released the video in September, it's showing her journey with her cancer treatment, and they were very prominent in
playing
there
cards
as well.
around the table with the
women.
children.
Sarah makes such a good point here about how they have blended the families and how that's something that was unheard of really beforehand. But I think the Middletons they didn't put the foot down at all, but they were embraced in such a way because I think they also asserted who they were. And, we know, of course, William's very close relationship with her parents, even moving his quad bike over to Bucklebury back in the day because he actually preferred to spend his weekends there than at Highgrove.
Going to the pub with Carol.
Yes, exactly. Going off to Mystique and going on all their family holidays. He was really they embraced him as a son of their own, and they're very much more the parental figures. I mean, when the king is your dad, I think he found a lot of resolve in Michael because, he's more of people have described him as more of a pipe and slippers type of guy instead of someone who's hosting state banquets. So I think that, he got from both sides, that paternal thing. But it's quite interesting. The Middletons actually did pay for part of the wedding. They insisted on that. And I think that set a really good tone for going forward and to say that we are also a family and we're getting included in this.
It feels like they've struck the right balance. And look, it's been so much fun talking about this beautiful moment in royal history, particularly as we've seen how it played out with their growing family over the years. So thank you so much for joining me. That's all we have time for on Royal Exclusive Rewind, but join me next time for some royal nostalgia when we open the files and relive another iconic moment.